And good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Our next presenter, please welcome first Graphene Ltd. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol FGPHF, as well as on the ASX under the symbol FGR. And it's the leading supplier of high-performing graphene products with a robust manufacturing platform based on captive supply of high-purity raw materials, and as established 100-ton-year graphene production capacity. Please welcome Chairman Warwick Grigor. Welcome, Warwick.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A few years back, commentators used to say that graphene was too expensive and needed to come down in price. Well, that was actually a red herring. That wasn't the issue. We saw the real issue was the availability of industrial scale supply at consistent quality to entice industry to start to use graphene for all the wonderful advantages it can give you. So First Graphene set about to address this issue. First Graphene today is perfectly placed to deliver the graphene revolution, owing to its ability to produce that industrial scale volume fit for delivery, and it can warrant consistently high quality graphene from a continuous process as opposed to a batch process which most other companies use. After 5 years of developing the process and mastering the science and technical aspects of production, we are now ready to go into the world to market our product to the global industry, building on the already successful application of graphene to a largely West Australian customer base. So what is graphene? True graphene is a carbon nanomaterial that can be between 1 and 10 atoms in thickness. If it's more than 10 atoms thick, it's technically a graphene nanoplatelet, a GNP, which performs differently and which is less valuable. And what is so great about graphene? Well, as this slide shows you, there are many benefits that it can bring to products. Generally, it's mixed in loadings of approximately 1%, maybe up to 2%. So it's an enhancer. It doesn't work on its own. It just makes what you mix it with much better in areas such as tensile strength, abrasion resistance, thermal electrical conductivity, and fire retardancy. Now, as introduced by Anna, First Graphene is ASX listed and on the OTC. It produces bulk volume, high quality graphene for use across a wide range of products, including composites and polymers, elastomers and rubbers, fire retardancy, and construction materials. We are legally qualified to sell graphene in Australia and Europe, and we are working on registration in the US. As a new material, there is a lengthy registration process that takes into account OH&S and environmental considerations. Very few companies have achieved this level of compliance, but we are one of them. It's an important question to ask of these other companies, whether you are a potential customer or an investor, and we are debt-free. Something that sets First Graphene apart from virtually every other purported graphene producer is our raw material, being vein graphite that grades better than 95% in its natural state. You see an example of that in that diagram there. We have developed 2 underground mines in preparation for expanding demand for graphene, and we buy from third parties, including the Sri Lankan government-operated mine. Our electrical exfoliation chemical process involves using dilute sulfuric acid and electricity to dissolve the lump graphite in an electrowinning cell. If you have a look at that diagram there, what effectively happens, the layers of graphene peel off like cards on a deck of cards, and we come up with jumbo size platelets with a diameter of about 70 microns. We then have a series of finishing steps that tailor the size of the platelets to suit the customers. The pure graph range of products can be 5, 10 or 20 microns in diameter, with aspect ratios of 2,000 to 2,500, which is much better than the standard 500 to 700 ratios that most other producers who use synthetic graphite end up with. We usually deliver pure graph in the powdered form, but we can also deliver an aqueous product. We have two main focuses as a business today. Firstly, and most importantly, we are continuing to commercialise graphene through interaction with industry and customers wanting the benefits of graphene. As part of our marketing drive, we recently announced the appointment of specialist marketing managers in two sectors, concretes and composites. At any point in time, we have between 50 and 100 potential customers with whom we are working to determine whether pure graph is suitable for their product ranges and in what sizes and quantities. A typical time frame involves 6 months of test work followed by a period of optimization before working with engineers to design the incorporation process. We currently expect that the time frame from introduction to execution will exceed 12 months. While this initially sounds like a lengthy time frame, the know-how that we are developing will enable a shortening of that time frame as we gradually tick the boxes. We will gather momentum as we can extrapolate results to new customers. Secondly, we are heavily involved in R&D in alternative energy applications, be it in adding graphene to anodes or supercapacitors. Most recently, we have announced a capability to produce green hydrogen with graphite and graphene products from petroleum feedstock, thereby opening the door for oil companies to become involved in the production of inputs into the battery sector. And on the commercialisation landscape, there are the products that we're focusing on: rubbers and elastomers, cements and construction, composites and plastics. Within each of those broad headings are a number of other products. Now, commercialisation implies profitability and earnings. We want to be a commercially profitable producer of graphene, not just a promoter and a novelty. To do that on a cash basis, we need to be selling 6 tonnes per annum of product. This graph shows that this level of sales can be achieved with as few as 3 to 4 customers that we're already dealing with now. To make an accounting profit, that takes into account all overheads and R&D. We need to be closer to that 20 tonne per annum level of production. We're not at that level yet, but we're hoping to get there within the foreseeable future. As we build sales through that level and towards our planned capacity, unit costs will come down significantly with the economies of scale. It's an important point to note that this is not a capital-intensive industry. There is no intimidating capital expenditure on the horizon. We could double our capacity for perhaps $2 million, or we could construct a new 200 tonne per annum standalone facility elsewhere in the world for only $5 million. To give you examples of what graphene can do when you add to the materials, consider the examples of composites and think of fiberglass here. We have successfully added 1% loadings of graphene to in-ground fiberglass swimming pools, achieving the following benefits. They can be made in 2 layers rather than 5, and in 80% of the time. And this gives the factory a 20% lifting capacity at no cost. The pools are 30% stronger and weigh 30% less. The hydrophobic feature of graphene prevents the ingress of groundwater that can lead to blistering on the surface of the pool walls. Same benefit applies to fiberglass boats. You wouldn't need to dry dock the boats for a month each year, as they wouldn't absorb the moisture in the first place. The fiberglass composite market is worth about $60 billion US per annum. Many fiberglass products could benefit from the addition of graphene. Carbon fibres can also be made stronger with graphene, and according to our customers, they can reduce manufacturing costs by 10%. There's a vast range of products that could benefit from graphene, from the obvious ones such as boats, fiberglass roofing and poly pipe, to specialised products such as oyster pots used in commercial farming. Cladding on apartment and office buildings is another potential market, and particularly important here is the fire retardancy that comes with graphene. Rubber is another area where graphene can make a real difference, but you need to remember there are many different types of rubber. We need to continue to work with rubber specialists to identify where the greatest benefits are. Automotive and specialty ties for industry equipment will benefit from increased tensile strength, tear resistance, and abrasion resistance. And as I said, cladding on apartment and office buildings is another potentially huge market. We are selling graphene to steel blue boots for strengthening soles of boots while delivering better grip. I recently purchased some rough terrain walking shoes and I've found that the graphene provided incredible grip. It's what they call graphene grip. We are selling to NewGen, which is adding graphene to polyurethane sacrificial liners in bucket wheel reclaimers on iron ore projects. Extended field trials have shown that with graphene, the liners last 6 times longer. Up until now, they generally have lasted 6 to 9 months. But with graphene, they could conceivably last more than 2 years. Maintenance downtime is the enemy of the high-volume iron ore industry in the Pilbara, which moves 1 billion tonnes of iron ore per annum. Rio is very keen to adopt these new liners. While talking about the mining industry, the iron ore producers all have had serious fires in their processing plants when their screens have caught fire when undertaking maintenance at regular intervals. 2 years ago, Rio lost $100 million of production through one such fire. We have proved that with 1% graphene additive, these screens will not propagate flame at atmospheric oxygen levels. They need to be up around 31% oxygen levels before they will burn. So atmospheric oxygen levels, they'll smoke and they'll smoulder, but there will be no flame and therefore there's no fire. And this is a huge benefit for these companies. Composite shipping pallets are similar. While they last twice as long as wooden pallets, there is big fire risk. Existing fire retardants retard fires, but they don't prevent them. We have shown that they won't burn when you add graphene. Cement-based concrete contributes about 8% of global carbon emissions. This could be cut by 1/3 with the addition of graphene. We've demonstrated that by adding just 0.8% of our pure graph, we deliver 34% improvement in compressive strength and 27% improvement in tensile strength. The result is stronger and lighter concrete. Another benefit is the reduction of permeability by better than 50%. It takes concrete a week to cure, and it does so inconsistently, which leads to micro cracks. The thermal conductivity of graphene assists in the flattening of the thermal gradient so that the temperature is more even as it cures. This leads to a significant reduction in micro cracks through which water can subsequently migrate to attack the rebar. Thus, graphene can significantly reduce concrete cancer. And here are some of the products that you could typically use graphene in: pipes, concrete slabs, tiles, construction. Firestop is a specific product that we have global rights to. It's a self-extinguishing barrier paint to flammable volatiles developed by the Adelaide University. Take wood structures, for example. When wood burns, it is the gas that is released by the heat and flames which fuels the fire. Graphene makes Firestop impervious to gas, keeping it contained in the wood, thereby reducing the fuel to the fire, and that combats the intumescent effect that causes the collapse of wooden buildings when they burn to a certain point. In the R&D side of things, we have a patented process that makes green hydrogen and high-quality graphite products for petroleum feedstock, providing an entry point for petroleum companies to be supplying battery input materials. The UK government has been funding this research to date. In supercapacitors and fuel cells, we have a patented process for making superior fuel cells that benefit from the addition of graphene. Our particular type of graphene is particularly well suited to these products. So that takes us to the strategic roadmap. Where are we going? We have a proven process for adding graphene to elastomers and polymers. We have demonstrated significant cost and performance improvements in fiberglass when you add graphene. We have proved that concrete can be made much stronger and last longer with significant environmental benefits. And the next product lines to be advanced are those involved with energy storing limits. These products are just a small range of what potentially we could be working on, but that's what we've been focusing on initially, because that's where the high volumes are. That's where the less government regulation is involved and the quickest path to profitability. On financials, we're currently capitalised at about 120 to 130 million Australian. We've come up from $4 million in capital 5 years ago. We've had raisings totalling $30 million along the way, and shareholders have done quite well. But this 5-year period that we've been in existence has all been about developing the process technology, the quality control. We're now entering a new phase of our growth, which is taking that to commercialisation through boosting sales. And to that end, with our new CEO, he's not a graphene expert. We've got plenty of those already, but he's an expert on building a business, corporate development. So with the youthfulness that he brings and a new CFO, it's like a rebirthing of the company at the moment for the next generation of growth that we're going to be experiencing. Our cash position as of the 31st of March was $3 million. We're in the process of negotiating additional funding at the moment. That should be clear within the next week. And when August comes around, we have $25 million worth of options that become due for expiry at approximately the current share price. Hopefully we'll get a good number of those exercised and we'll be in a very strong position. Our board is small and tight. It displays legal skills, technical skills, financial and capital market skills. Our senior executives, heading the list there is our new Chief Executive Officer, Michael Bell. He started in January. Paul Ladislaus is our Chief Technical Officer. He's based in Manchester at the Graphene Engineering Innovation Centre, where we do a lot of work. We're a Tier 1 member there, and that puts us in close touch with European companies. David Bennett runs the operations where our plant is in Henderson in Western Australia. So a very strong technical team, and I'd suggest to you it's arguably the best in the world. So, and there we have our mandatory disclaimer, and that's First Graphene. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have for me today, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. We do have a few questions. What industries have been your strongest sales been in, and what industries are you targeting going forward?
In the polymer area is where we've made most sales, and fiberglass, as an example, being swimming pools. The largest swimming pool manufacturer in Australia, I think it was today, was actually launching its new range of swimming pools. They will all have graphene in them. And the boot manufacturing business, Steel Blue Boots, they've started drawing down product this month. That's where we've been making most sales. But as I said, there are pipe manufacturers, there are a lot of uses of polymers that we can extrapolate to. So we're really just starting to scratch the surface. If you consider sales have been to Western Australian businesses, the world market is 100 times bigger, and we're looking at extending our experience in these areas to get our volumes up to that profitability level.
So what is your competition like on the high-end graphene markets?
Well, it's hard to be certain. A lot of companies out there are saying they can do this and they can do that. But me as an analyst, I have trouble seeing how a lot of these companies can verify what they say. Obviously, I know First Graphene better and I understand it. The other companies, there's a lot of hyperbole, there's a lot of promotion. But one of the problems a lot of these companies have is they make it in batches. Customers that buy it have complained to me that one batch is not the same as the previous batch. There is an issue there, and that's why our process being continuous is very important. If you talk to Andy Goodwin, our technical director, he says quite simply, well, when they ask the question you've just asked, he says, well, there really isn't any competition for what we do. Now, that might be because he's a good, loyal director, but there is some truth in that too.
Talk a little bit about what is your profit margin difference on the high-end versus the low-end products?
We basically sell our base product for $200 a kilogram. Our costs at the moment would probably be a little over $100 a kilogram. We manage to maintain approximately a $100 per kilogram margin now. As we expand, our costs will come down. We'd like to think they'll come down as low as 50. I think you'll find very few companies in the world could produce graphene anything like that. But it's not really a price issue. The price issue is for the middleman that buys the graphene and puts it into the end product. They will always have resistance in selling something that lasts longer because they prefer inbuilt obsolescence. So one of the skills that the middlemen that buy the graphene from us will have to come to grips with is how to price their products where everyone wins, where the customer gets a better product, where they don't, where the middleman doesn't have to cannibalise its product, its pricing. There's plenty of extra profit in the system to go around once people talk about it rationally.
So here's two questions in one. Do you believe that graphene eventually will replace fiberglass, or is it simply a tool to make it stronger? And as graphene use will inevitably increase in the future, is FGR in a position to increase production to meet all those demands?
Graphene will never replace fiberglass. It'll just make it a lot better. By adding graphene, approximately 1%, it performs much closer to the levels that you'd expect carbon fibre to perform. So just remember that it makes whatever you're using better rather than replacing it. In terms of our capacity, the 100 tonne per annum capacity level is a good starting point. When we get to 50 or 60 tonnes per annum production rate, we'll then be moving to duplicate the facility that we've got, so to go to 200 tonnes per annum. After that, and that would probably cost maximum $2 million. After that, we'd be looking to setting up production facilities in places like Brazil, Europe, the USA even. And we could, with our raw material supply, we could quite readily get up to about 1,000 tonnes per annum production of graphene. To go beyond 1,000 tonnes per annum might be stretching the availability of this raw material. So we are working on adaptations of our process so we could use lesser quality graphite input. Now, at that point, we'd be starting to exchange operating margins for volume. Our total earnings would escalate, but our operating margins would not be as good if we had to use lesser quality of material graphite that other companies are actually using now. So we've got a honeypot with our vein graphite, and we intend to make the most of it to give us a competitive advantage in the early stages of our business.
Talk a little bit about you recently announced a joint venture with the Brazilian steel producer, Grigor, is that how you pronounce it? Is this going to be realized in the near future?
Well, we'd hope so. The documentation is with lawyers now, and they charge by the hour, so they always take longer than you expect. But the idea there is Grigor wants to be have a big graphene division in South America, Brazil and South America. They like our product. It'd be more in the lines of an exclusive distribution agreement. There's opportunity to share our technologies for adding it to products. But basically, they see graphene as something of the future, and they're really putting a lot of emphasis on it. We do have other global companies looking at our product that we're in various stages of negotiation with. And we'd like to be bringing some of those to a head. The Grigor one might take a number of weeks. You never know, but we'd like to think it'd happen before the 30th of June.
All right. Does First Graphene have a long cash runway?
Our burn rate's probably $1.2 or $3 million at the most per quarter, with the capital raising that we're looking at now and the potential to have options exercised over the next 3 months. We could be sufficiently well funded that we don't have to go back to markets in the foreseeable future after that. And of course, once we get to be cash flow positive, which we'd like to be within the next 12 months, it's a different ball game. We won't be going back to shareholders at all unless it makes sense to have a capital expenditure for large expansions, and that's always a good thing. Remember, every growing business needs expanding working capital.
Sure. So at the 20-ton level, once you hit that, what percentage of growth would that represent for you?
Our levels now are probably 4 or 5 tonnes per annum now, lifting towards that 6 tonnes per annum level. So from where we are right today, it would be, 400% lift in our sales level at the moment. We have had a few setbacks because of the virus with some of our customers, and we would have liked to have been producing at this level this time last year, but some of the factories that we're dealing with, they went into lockdown for quite a while. So like everyone else, the virus has been a bit of a nuisance.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about, do you have any white papers on the reduced permeability and other benefits for concrete?
Yes, we have had a white paper done. We've got a white paper that either has just been released or is about to be released on the abrasion resistance of the polymer liners for the buckets. But those white papers should be on our website. If they're not there, or if you want to drop an email, I'll make sure I'll get them to you.
All right. Well, we do have a few more questions, but time is up. So we will send these directly to you so you can answer them to our viewers. And thank you again for your presentation. It's a fascinating company, and we look forward to all of your updates.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Remember that you're going to experience a black screen for a brief moment as we move to our next presenter, but stay with us because we're coming right back.